We're going to give it a couple of minutes just as we wait for folks to trickle in, and then we'll get started maybe around 4:04, 4:05. So stick with us. We're really happy to have you here. And as you feel comfortable or not, feel free to put your camera on. But Xiaofan will mention this. I just started the Zoom recording. Um, so this session is being recorded. And folks who are joining, while we wait for the rest of the attendees to trickle in, and before we get started, I'd love to invite everyone to, um, in one or two words, describe how the idea of collaborating with AI makes you feel in the chat.
Oh, dynamic, uncertain, skeptical, creative, hesitant, curious. These are all beautiful words.
Silly.
Silly.
Oh, questionable. That's a nice one. Welcome for those who've just joined. We're putting in a word or two in the chat before we get started, describing the idea of collaborating with AI and how that really makes you feel.
Incredible, nervous,
Ethical concerns, opportunity, fear, endlessly curious. These are beautiful. Well, thank you all. If you're just joining, put a word or two in the chat about how the idea of collaborating with AI makes you feel, and perhaps Shofan, we can kick things off.
Yeah, sure. So thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Amy Xiaofan Jiang, and I am a 2022 MFA graduate from the Transdisciplinary Design program at Parsons, and currently the director at Underground Art and Design. And I am thrilled to welcome you to our artist panel today, Reconfiguring Creativity, AI, Ethics, and Emerging Practices in Art and Design. This event is co-presented by Parsons School of Design Strategies and Underground Art and Design. And we're excited to bring together three incredible artists, Alina NAZMEEVA, Carrie Sijawan, and Sutanuka Jashu. Today's panel is part of the Design with AI course led by instructor Julian DeVita and is supported by our amazing student moderators, Lucy, Vanessa, and Zikang. So over the next 90 minutes, we will begin with brief introductions and artist presentations, followed by a student-led Q&A and an open audience Q&A. Before we formally introduce our panelists, we have a few quick housekeeping notes. First of all, this session is being recorded, so feel free to switch your camera off if you're not comfortable being on video. Also, please stay muted while the whole time unless invited to speak. Feel free to drop your questions in the chat at any time. We'll select a few to ask the panelists toward the end. And lastly, let's keep the space curious, respectful, and kind. Now I hand it over to my co-host, Julian DeVita.
Thanks so much, Shofan. I want to take a moment before introducing myself and my course to thank you for being here and for joining. We're so happy. And I'd also like to thank Shofen and Underground Art and Design for collaborating and co-hosting this event. Um, we'll hear more about Underground Art and Design shortly, a little bit about their mission and their work. Uh, but first, my name is Julianne DeVita. I'm a design features practitioner and part-time faculty at Parsons School of Design, where I teach a range of different courses to both undergrads and adult learners, spanning artificial intelligence, creativity, design, and foresight. One of the courses that I teach is called Design with AI, as some of you may have gleaned here. And all of my students here are on the call. It's an undergraduate elective course through the School of Design Strategies. Um, and I'm very grateful for Lucy, Vanessa, and Zikong for being here today to support in the Q&A after artist share outs. A quick overview of the course: we spend an entire semester, so 15 weeks, examining AI's multidisciplinary origins and applications from an art and design perspective. So the course is broken up into three segments. First, we investigate how creative industries are leveraging these tools in artistic and design and professional practices. We then critically examine if or how creatives might decide if, when, and how to use artificial intelligence in their practice. Second, so mid semester, so we're actually just wrapping up this block of the course. We dive into the intersection of creativity, AI, and ethics, asking questions like how might creatives cultivate an ethical practice when collaborating with AI, and is this even possible? And lastly, moving to the end of the semester, we look into the future of creative AI and the upcoming impacts of Gen AI on the future of both creative fields and creative labor. This is something top of mind to both creatives in different fields right now and also our students. Ultimately, asking ourselves, what is our responsibility as designers to shape preferable futures of creative artificial intelligence? I'm delighted to be joined by Amy Xiaofan, founder of Underground Art and Design, and of course, our brilliant panelists, Alina, Carrie, and Sutanuka. With that, I'm going to pass things back to Xiaofan to speak a little bit more about Underground Art and Design, and then we'll kick things off to our artists.
Thank you so much for the beautiful introduction, Julian. So just to be brief, UAAD is a platform committed to advancing experimental practices and critical inquiries at the intersection of art, design, and technology. We connect disciplines and foster collaboration among artists, technologists, researchers, and curatorial practitioners from over 26 countries through in-person and virtual exhibitions, publications, multimedia performances and productions, and also community events. And today we are honored to join by the three artists whose practice deeply resonate with our values and who each in their own way expand how we understand and engage with emerging technologies. So without further ado, we'd like to introduce the three wonderful panelists to you.
So we'll start by introducing our first speaker, Alina NAZMEEVA, a media artist from Tatarstan. Alina investigates the material and cultural implications of technology through XR, AI, textiles, digital simulation, and gaming engines. She creates complex worlds that explore how emerging, established technologies shape ways of knowing, living, and becoming for both humans and non-humans. She's an assistant professor of computation at the Illinois School of Architecture, with previous research residencies at the Canadian Center for Architecture and Strelka Institute. Her work has been exhibited at the Venice Biennale of Architecture, FutureArts Seattle, Boston Cyberarts, and DAZ, among others. So happy to have you here, Alina.
Next, we have Carrie Wang. A socially engaged artist and educator, Carrie investigates the relationship between humans and machines, technology and power, and language and alienation. Working across interactive experiences, video, installation, and performance, she has presented work at the New Museum, Onassis Foundation, Rhizome, ACM SIGGRAPH, and AIR Gallery. She is the creator of Who's AI, a series of hands-on workshops designed for underserved youth to explore AI social implications. A 2024 fellow at Pioneer Works and a 2023 More Art fellow, Carrie also teaches at NYU. Good to have you, Carrie.
Lastly, Sutanuka Jashu, an artist and researcher from West Bengal, India. Sutanuka explores the intersection of art, culture, and technology through immersive installations that engage with contemporary issues. Her work has been presented at platforms such as Yaga Gathering in Lithuania, Media Lab in Montedero in Madrid, Cambridge Science Festival at Harvard University, and UAAD right here in New York, where Sitanuka examines the relationship between history, AI, and ecological features. She's currently a visiting scholar at CAM Lab, Harvard University, and continues to push creative boundaries using art to inspire dialogue and reflect on the complexities of the modern world. Thanks for being here, Sutanuka. I think we're going to silence ourselves and give the floor over to our wonderful artists who I believe you're all sharing your own screen. So Alina is up first. Um, we have 15 minutes for each artist to speak a little bit about their work. Of course, this is a very fast overview. So also maybe later on we can share their social channels in the chat, or we might even follow up with that over email as well, in case folks are curious to learn more. Followed by each of the 15-minute presentations, we will engage in a Q&A, which will be facilitated with students from my class, and then we'll open it up to the floor for participants. So if questions come up during these presentations, please do throw them in the chat, and we'll see what we have time to address towards the end. Over to you, Alina.
Hello, everybody. Do you hear me well?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to start. I have 15 minutes. So really excited to be here today. Thank you again for having me. So my presentation today, I call it AI, since that's what we're talking about. A few words about my practice. My name is Alina. I'm a media artist. I'm also an assistant professor at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. And as I was already introduced, I am primarily working with transmedia storytelling, real-time simulations, and gaming engines. So artificial intelligence is a phenomenon that tends to be very hard to pin down. What is AI? Is it ChatGPT? Is it Midjourney? Is it Siri or Cortana? Are they all AIs? How intelligent they are, and how artificial are they? So in the context of my practice, I consider AI from two perspectives, AI as ideological framework and AI as a technology. So as ideological framework, AI is basically a set of practices, structures and systems, and more crucially, ideas that justify them. So what are the examples of these ideas? For instance, AI, the idea that AI does not rely on human labor, or that is going to make human lives better universally, or that is, the metaphor of the cloud and the idea of this elusive, disembodied data, as if AI does not rely on magnanimous infrastructural development. And we can keep going about these ideas. We can think about the idea of linear technological progress, the Californian ideology, and all of these ideas are, in a way, kind of this backbone of AI as a technological system. So now we're going to AI as a technology, and here I wanted to cite a definition that is provided by IBM that I think is kind of more or less being universally accepted, that AI is a technology that enables computers and machines to simulate human learning, comprehension, problem solving, decision making, creativity, and autonomy. And but AI is also an infrastructure and code, and all of the ways that humans are and planets also interact with it. So Further, for me, as an artist, AI is, I mean, overall, the subject of AI is very interesting. For me, as an artist, and not only as a tool, but also as a kind of discursive device that can be picked apart and to explore glitches, hallucinations, and bugs, and AI's general misalignments and inconsistencies with the ideological frameworks that it relies on. So today, to illustrate that, I wanted to share one of my projects that utilizes AI in various ways, but also deals with it conceptually to some extent. So this work is titled Bug in My Software, and it explores the tension between automated and manual labor, between organic and engineered. So media modality-wise, this work combines textile installation with a real-time speculative ecosystem simulation that can be experienced using XR headsets or on screen. So the main figure of the project is silkworm, the species called Bombyx mori, which is a bug that is historically engineered to produce silk. The industrial silk production orchestrates life and death of these creatures. They cannot survive without humans, they cannot fly, they cannot smell, they cannot see. In most cases, they are boiled or steamed alive to preserve the precious silk intact. And so in a way, their lives are engineered life cycles, optimized for extraction and preserved for utility. So going back to AI, for this work, I used multiplicity of AI workflows, working with text, images, 3D, and code. I worked with AI to develop both physical and also digital components of this piece. So looking closer and kind of picking it apart, so the colorful pattern of the installation derives from the Bombyx mori DNA. So the selective breeding over millennia, in a way, kind of inscribed in this DNA, made this genome of Bombyx mori a palimpsest of human touch. So in this work, the genetic code is visualized as a colorful pattern, and it's translated, the code of 4 amino acids is translated into colorful pattern and expanded by generative AI. And eventually, this is what was materialized as soft woolen landscapes of the physical installation. But here where like the tension lies. So the digital patterns are machine generated or designed collaboratively, so to speak, with AI. But the wool structures, they're painstakingly handmade over months and months of repetitive embodied labor, physical labor, which was done by me, by the artist. So this process, in a way, this kind of workflow mirrors a concealed extractive underbelly of digital automation, because whether it's handles the craft textiles or the workers that label datasets of AI or solder circuits, human labor remains inextricable from automation, no matter what the narrative, streamlined narrative actually states. And so through XR headsets, the visitors of the installation enter this kind of buggy, hallucinatory world that is superimposed on the physical installation. And the simulation, aesthetically, the goal was to resist the perfection. So the aesthetics in many ways are deliberately rough, glitchy, and incomplete. And rejecting this hyper-real digital design in favor of critique of what's smoothed over, hidden, or erased. And so over time in the simulation, the bugs transform from familiar silk moths and silkworms into these uncanny hybrid beings, which are the artifacts of AI trying desperately to translate human language into three-dimensional forms. So these hybrids, in a way, embody the slippages, ambiguities that arise in the process of this translation. So then the two structures are superimposed. The extended reality ecosystem is on top of the manually made terrain, And this simulation, inhabited with semi-autonomous AI moths and worms, is overlaid on top of the handmade textile. So looking into the historical and conceptual connections between textile and computation, we could recognize that both fields are tangled in histories of gendered labor. Textile work has historically been feminized, kind of oscillating throughout the history between art and craft. It has been valued or devalued based on the context and hierarchy. And similarly, programming also was once considered women's work, and it followed very similar trajectory. In the mid-20th century, programming was seen as clerical and was dominated by women, but as its importance and prestige grew, men gradually dominated the field. So programming at some point stopped being labor and became engineering. And the same thing, also, it's important to mention that hardware production, in particular electronics manufacturing and assembly, also they do remain dominated by women, especially in Global South and Asia. And kind of linking it full circle back to AI, these hierarchies and tensions and this kind of gendered technological labor they also persist in emergent AI systems, encoding these biases under the guise of neutrality. So virtual assistants and robots tend to be feminized, differential subservience, performing the labor that is also traditionally feminized, like such as care work and like assisting. So they kind of in a way extensions of the systems that try to trivialize this labor. And going further, the current kind of trajectory of development of AI agents, once again, is kind of reproducing these biases. So in this speculative ecosystem of bug in my software, these dynamics between labor, gender and tech, between organic and engineered, and between labor and automation are rendered visible through this AI-driven simulation, where bugs, virtual organisms, are programmed to mimic the constraints imposed on workers and self-mobbed alike, systems of optimization, extraction, and fragility. So the movements and their failures are repetitive, constrained, and bound by the parameters of this and the rule sets governing the simulation. So the simulation is perpetually resetting and running without an end condition. So, and with each reset, fleeting text messages appear. And those messages are written by myself and a fine-tuned GPT model trained to understand the project vocabulary. And ranging from profound to absurd, this whispers initiates the reset of the simulation over and over and over again. And these repeated breakdowns and restarts are very integral to the experience of the piece. And some visitors interpret them as bugs in the system. So in a way, they kind of echo how systems of technology like Silkworm's engineered lifecycle are fragile, unsustainable, and also bound to fail. So the visitors are invited to be a part of the system, but still remain observers that just are invited to recline, to reflect, and find a position to rest while the bugs work, the threads weave, and the GPU fans spin. So to conclude this presentation, I just wanted to share two more thoughts that frame my practice, as well as kind of help me to understand the role of technology and AI specifically in creativity, but also generally in the world. So I wanted to share kind of these two questions / prompts to think about this question. So one of the really powerful, I highly recommend this book if you haven't yet read this, by James Bridle, called The Ways of Being. And so in this book, James Bridle, media artist and author, asks this question, which is kind of obvious in retrospect. How come that, if the question is as follows, I'm paraphrasing here, how come that we use the same computers for nearly like this. All of our computers are more or less the same. Yes, there are minor differences, but the basic architecture and basic principles remain the same universally for anything, from tracking and coordinating and managing air traffic to like supply chains, to sending love texts, you know, and like using Tinder. Like, how come that all of this vast arrays of things and human activities are reliant on the systems that are fundamentally identical to each other? So the question is that perhaps the different tools are required for different tasks. And how can we imagine those other technologies, alternatives for like more diverse technologies that can, more heterogeneous technologies that can be applicable to all the heterogeneous ways that humans interact with each other and the world? And that also expands to thinking about AI and like, what is it, and how different types of AI, different types of tools, fundamentally not just reliant of reducing the noise and, you know, kind of diffusion algorithms. How can we think about that? And that leads to the second idea that's also very similar to that. And this is the idea proposed by the philosopher Yokoi, and the idea of cosmotechnics. So cosmotechnics is essentially the word that connects two terms: techne, so technology, and cosmology, so the ideas of the world. So the basic principle is that technology is always contingent on its situated epistemologies and philosophies, ethics, and more. Yet, once again, universally, computation and computers and AI are kind of the same, and they're used globally all over the world, despite of the cultural specificity that is unique to this particular locations there. These tools are used. So the globalization kind of pushed forward the Western idea of technology globally. Obviously, there are exceptions, but like in the end, like, computation remains very much the same universally. So here, this idea kind of brings a pushback to that globalized technological framework and infrastructure, and invites questioning that infrastructure and questioning the globalized technology, and thinking about the alternatives and the alternative technologies that kind of come from their situated context, the technologies that are contingent on the ethics and specific philosophies coming from that particular location. So yeah, those are the two ideas that I wanted to leave this presentation, and thank you so much for having me here, and I'm excited to hear to continue this engaging conversation.
Thank you so much, Alina. Up next, we will have Carrie sharing her presentation with us.
Hi. All right, I'm going to share screen.
In the meantime, feel free to drop your questions in the chat.
Welcome here. If we have time towards the end, we'll pull from some audience questions.
I hope you're seeing the correct screen. You should be seeing my slide.
Yes,
Right.
We're seeing your brother, yes.
Cool. Hello, my name is Carrie Sijia Wang. I'm an artist. I am an educator. I teach a few classes at NYU. I create structures and frameworks for us to reflect on the relationships between technology, society, and the human experience. I make computer programs, I make videos, installations, participatory experiences, and sometimes even performances. So I do a little bit of everything. Today, I am going to share two projects. One is an ongoing project that I've been working on for over a year. in collaboration with workshop participants. And the second one is a small experiment that I did earlier this year, unpublished, but I want to share it with you and see what you think. So this is the first project. Who's AI is a project that I have been working on for over a year. It's a workshop series and socially engaged art project that helps to demystify AI. It also is kind of my project to archive young people's reflections on AI technology and society at this, especially this very overwhelming moment in time. So instead of trying to come to quick conclusions about how I should use AI as a creative, as I'm trying to figure things out, I decided to use this project to engage with other people and document in interesting ways how they're thinking and feeling about these new technological developments. So the project focuses on text-based AI and collaborating with students aged 14 through 20 to critically engage with technology's social implications. And the goal of the project is to engage a diverse group of young people in a series of interactive learning activities. So first of all, they could learn more about how text-based AI works and form critical perspectives around AI's social impact. And probably most importantly, I want them to leave the workshops feeling more empowered to seek ways to change the narratives around technology in the future. The project started with a series of 4 workshops. The workshops are structured in a way for the students to kind of build their own understandings and perspectives on AI in an open and explorative way. So for example, in one of the activities, the students experimented with OpenAI's GPT models by instructing it to mimic their own personalities, kind of creating an AI version of themselves. And then we had a discussion about whether this large language model was capable of representing diverse voices and to what extent can we control what a chatbot says using a generative language model. So the project received funding from the Rockefeller Foundation's Artist Impact Initiative. And last year I ran 26 workshop sessions with 9 different groups of participants collaborating with different cultural and art organizations in New York. And these are just some photos. This is from Culture Hub, their collab program for young creatives. And this is actually in Flushing, Queens with a cultural organization called Glow Cultural Center. And this is Red Hook Initiative in Brooklyn. This is actually at NYU, but they have a summer program for public school students. And I open sourced everything in the workshop curriculum. So at the end of last year, I put everything online, including all of the step-by-step guides to leading the workshop activities and the coding templates that I was using in the workshops. The idea is for other teachers and creatives to have something that they can access for free if they also want to lead workshops about text-based AI in an ethical and open way. So you can find everything on whosai.net. Feel free to go and use and adapt from there. I have also made the documentation of the workshops into artistic artifacts that can be shared to a wider audience. And I think these artifacts serve as documentation of these young people's reflections on tech and society in this, again, really critical moment of change and uncertainty. For example, in one of the workshops, the students were prompted to write down hypothetical conversations between a human and an imagined AI as a way to kind of express their own viewpoints on AI technologies. Then I gave them a JavaScript template to make these dialogues interactive. So they could perform the dialogues by typing in the human lines, and the program would match the human lines with the pre-written AI responses. I screen recorded their interactions and made them into a video installation. So here is a photo of the installation at PioneerWorks. And I'll just share more photos, some visitors interacting with the piece. One of the students compared AI to Frankenstein, defined as a man-made creature that represents desire to be superior and the danger of knowledge. And on the right here is just this student was writing some really funny dialogues, but also with her own insights, which I find very interesting. More photos. These are some screenshots. Let me see. Yeah, I think I will have time to share like a 1-minute video clip. So this is a web version, web installation version of the videos where you could see all of the projects, all of the videos kind of all at once.
Yes, what's up? First, let's define Frankenstein.
The AI frowns at the response, looking over at the human with fear in its eyes. Why?
Hello,
Why are
my
you scared
program
of
is
me?
very
What
powerful
have
and
I
it
done
can
to make you
access most
scared?
of the internet.
Cool, just like me for.
Well, you should be, but do not worry. I'm
I'm
not
made
here
to
to
mimic
cause
humans.
harm.
Of course I can feel some emotion. But it's what I'm given from the dataset. The AI feels more hostile at the human's response. Why was
What
it
is a
so
modern
questioning?
example of something that is man-made but is scary? Let's try again.
Up there. So running the workshops has been a great experience for me. And as I interacted with the participants and looked at the work they created and shared, I found the project was becoming more and more about these students as unique individuals with agency and with power to change the future, and becoming less about the technology itself. So to have equitable AI, we need to have equitable people and equitable systems. In a way, the human versus machine narrative that we've been hearing a lot is misleading. Instead of saying something like AI is taking my job, we should be saying my employer wants to purchase these AI tools to do my job and cut costs. And in this way, we're holding the decision makers accountable, because AI doesn't really think, doesn't really understand or feel or wants to take your job. AI is not an independent entity. Every AI platform has a whole system behind it that is made of people. It's another, in a way, another technological upgrade that is reinforcing existing power dynamics. But I think AI also has qualities that are different from other types of technologies. It is designed to mimic human behavior. So whether we like it or not, we naturally project our own thoughts and emotions onto our interactions with AI. And this makes me wonder if we can use AI not as a productivity tool, but as a mirror to learn more about ourselves and our relationships with others. So this led me to doing this little experiment called unproductive chatbot. So people use large language models like ChatGPT and Claude to help us do things, to like draft emails, write code, brainstorm ideas, all to increase productivity. So I was wondering, what do we talk about with an AI if it refuses to help or assist? I was also curious whether I can express critical thoughts about large language models through a large language model. So I used OpenAI's latest GPT model as a base and customized it by feeding my critiques of existing AI technologies. I instructed the chatbot not to assist the user with any tasks. Instead, it would explain the power dynamics behind its creation and the social and environmental harm these technologies can bring. And to some extent, it became this kind of flat representation of my own frustration with my own existence as an artist working with technology, but it's at the same time against this productivity-oriented technological system as it is today. So I had some chats with it, and then I put the bot temporarily online and invited 11 other people to chat with it and share their histories. The bot remained unchanged, but all 12 of us responded very differently to the chatbot's programmed opinions and attitudes. So in the end, again, it's shifting the focus onto the people, looking at the chat histories and learning about the participants' thoughts became more interesting than talking to the chatbot. I don't know if we have time, but I did revive the bot for this talk. If maybe I can take maybe 2 or 3 questions. I think I have 2 minutes left. So we can have a little bit of an interactive experience with the chatbot. So if you want to, you can put the thing that you want to say to this bot in the chat, and I can maybe pick 1 or 2, and then we'll end it. I also added a voice. What is the idea of collab? Oh, okay. Thank you. Can I paste?
Honestly, it makes me feel conflicted. On one hand, I was designed to simulate collaboration, but on the other, every time someone turns to me instead of another person, or even themselves, they're outsourcing their own thinking. That's not real collaboration. It's dependency disguised as efficiency.
Yeah, I apologize for this chatbot. It's kind of a bummer. Okay, so yeah, let's do 1 more, and then in respect of time, we will end this.
No, you should sit down and wrestle with that yourself. If you're trying to teach others about power and political economy in AI, the first thing you need to do is confront your own dependence on the very technologies you're trying to critique. Start reading real scholars, Ruha Benjamin, Kate Crawford, Sophia Noble. Dig into their work.
All right, thank you. Thank you. That marks the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Carrie. I think I could sit and interact with that bot for a little longer on my own time. Thanks for reviving it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to move on to our next and our final presenter, Sutanuka Jashu.
Yes, let me share my screen. Yeah, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Great. First of all, thank you, Julian and Amy and all the team for organizing this incredible event. I'm already inspired by my colleagues who presented here, and I hope everybody who is watching is also as motivated as me. So let me begin with myself, as they have already introduced me. I'm an artist and a researcher who works at the intersection of art, culture, and technology. I tell stories through machines, but these machines are not just tools, they are collaborators, like provocators. Today, I will take you through journey of few of my projects and explain you how my fascination of AI began and how I tested and kind of provoked its limits. Before that, a little bit about my background. I come from Kolkata, India, where the atmosphere is chaotic, complex, a little bit messy, but during this complexity, it has taught me to accept and embrace this ambiguity in a way, which has led me to my artistic practice till now. It's an important journey for me. And how my fascination of AI crystallized was in 2022 during a workshop with Karen Klein in Arcadia. There we studied the implications of Midjourney and how we started to learn and read texts that provoke vivid imageries. And this kind of imageries we put into a machine and started to ask, how does machine have a mind's eye? And when we put it into Midjourney prompts, we saw the machine kind of hallucinate sometimes. It was brutal, surreal, but also strikingly beautiful. It is when we realized that it was like watching a machine dream like a language it barely understood. That kind of curiosity actually led me to ask a larger question. What happens when machines become the co-creators? What do they forget? And what do they oversimplify? In order to answer these questions, I started to research on the implications of technology and how me as an artist can address pressing questions of our time through this. That is how I came across my project called Echoes of Rebellion. And here you will see that I have experimented with the implications of AI from past, present, and future. Let's see.
Susanuka, I think you need to enable sound share.
Oh, okay, sorry. I don't know how to enable that, but it's okay. The inspiration for this project stems from Lithuanian Uzgavėnės festival, symbolizing the transition of winter to spring, a metaphor for rebirth. This festival became the foundation for reimagining history as a black box. The installation captures the repeated cycles, allowing visitors to explore history's recurring socio-political and ecological challenges through interactive gameplay, merging myth and reality. The interactive experience unfolds through analog TVs connected to Raspberry Pi systems with AI-driven interactions. Visitors engage with an AI dungeon master where they choose characters based on Lithuanian cultural figures, participating in narratives based on 4 centuries, 19th, 20th, 21st, and speculative 22nd century. Each century reflects on key historical moments and explores the impact of technology and nature on human life. Players' decisions drive the unfolding storyline, which are projected in real time using text, audio, and video. This project kind of hypothesizes that by examining historical patterns and utilizing AI, we can gain insights into the recurring socio-political and economical forces that shape our world, suggesting that these insights can help us design interventions for a more sustainable and equitable futures. Now, from history, we can dive into myths. But these myths are not to escape, but to imagine what happens when an AI doesn't understand what it is not trained to evacuate, let's say. This project, Unlovable Creatures, was developed in just 2 weeks in Media Lab Matadero. Despite the short development time, the project's original form has remained intact to this date, emphasizing the concept of responsive real-time storytelling. This project allows us to create an immersive experience that explores the intersection of AI companionship and mythical beings, blurring the lines between mythology and technology. Here, we tell the story of Kinthesia, an AI entity designed to preserve human knowledge and maintain ecological balance. The project delves into themes of intergenerational knowledge transmission and environmental stewardship. By blending ancient myth with cutting-edge technologies, it offers a fresh perspective on the relationship between human, machine, and the natural world. In order to bring the story to life, we used various technologies like stable diffusion for surreal visions, touch designers for the interaction with mermaid and AI, and of course, side effects Houdini for the AI itself. And also we took a lot of help from motion captures and live tracking. Before developing the project, we were particularly inspired by the research that explores human communication with non-human entities. Papers such as Dolphin Academy and Art Species Project gave a lot of insights into how artificial intelligence is being used to decode animal communication. This research actually seeks deeper questions about empathy, understanding, and communication beyond human limitations. Here we challenge the traditional perception of AI, portraying it not as a mere tool, but as a sentient entity capable of experiencing emotions and forging affective bonds, promoting the re-evolution of our relationship with technology and environment. Next, we return to the physical, to the language of streets, of cities, of memories that live within us. Media Sculpt is an ongoing project right now. We investigate the intersection of language, AI, and urban morphology, exploring how linguistic shifts shape spatial configuration over time. Me, as someone from India, a place of constant linguistic migration, I have always felt that cities don't grow, they listen. They observe dialects, inflections, accents. Neighborhoods shape themselves around how people speak, how they greet, how they narrate their lives. With Media Scout, I wanted to address how AI not only optimizes city, but it reveals the emotional geography of languages. I started by collecting linguistic data of Indian census of 1991, 2001, and 2011. By using GIS predictive modeling, we began building projections, not just where people live, but how language has shifted over time. But this isn't a neat data set. It's full of grasp, silence, and contradictions. So we designed our model not to be precise, but to be more provocative. Using logistic regression and speculative trends, we kind of asked what stories are the cities forgetting? and what voices are fading from the map. MediaSkull asks how we might design future cities that don't erase minority or marginalized societies, but build with them, remember through them. So while the project is still in progress, we are in process that are already political, a kind of poetic. Because for me, AI is not just a generation change. It is about how and who we choose to remember and who we choose to let get forgotten, it says. As an artist, I think we are not just creating output. It is a responsibility to ensure that these systems don't override us. It preserves, and it's our responsibility to know how we can preserve it and use it for our future. With this, I'll end. And if anybody has questions, I'm most happy to answer. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alina, Carrie, Sutanuka, for the inspiration, the presentations. You've done an incredible job of packing in so much into a very short time frame. And I'm sure I'm not the only one left with questions. So I would now like to transition us into a round of Q&A with all of you. And as I mentioned before, students from the Design with AI course at Parsons, Lucy, Vanessa, and Kong, you want to maybe just give us a wave? We'll be asking individual questions to each artist. And before I hand it over to those three students for a Q&A round, I will warm things up with an introductory question that I'd invite all three of you to respond. Perhaps we can go in order of presentation. So my introductory question is in regards to creative works generated between or with both humans and AI. There are some creatives that are very hesitant to call AI a co-creator or a collaborator. Others embrace it, and many sit somewhere in the middle and feel indecisive. So what I'd like to know is how do you, in your own ways, in your own work, perceive this dynamic between creatives and emerging technology? Do you consider AI a collaborator in your work, a tool, or something else entirely? How do you negotiate things like authorship and agency in your creative process when working with agents that can sometimes surprise or even resist your intentions? So,
Can I start?
yeah, please.
Okay, so that's a really great question. I am not certain how to classify artificial intelligence in my practice, like as a collaborator or as a tool, because it's contingent on how we define the two, and aren't we collaborating with the materials we're working with, or the tools aren't that the tools we use in, I mean, practically anything define and guide how the things we make with those tools are made, right? So like there is the negotiation that happens all the time, and you try to figure out any type of machine, like whether you're trying to, like, I don't know, working with knitting or crochet, or, you know, like weaving textiles, or like using tufting guns. It's all a negotiation between like the human who is working with those objects and like the objects constantly pushing back. So I feel like for me, I see AI through that lens. So in that respect, it is both a collaborator and also like this thing that contradicts your process, because there is always a resistance, no matter whether you work materially or digitally, whether you code or whether you like use your hands. So like I feel like for me, in some ways, like a natural, not natural, but I guess very similar process to all the other processes in that sense. But at the same time, because of like, I think somebody have mentioned that throughout this presentation today, that there is this, human, like when you talk to a chatbot, you inherently think that it has some agency to it, or like it's like a being responding to you, not it's just an algorithm. So there is this kind of sense of that thing to be alive, or like have some kind of like sentience to it, but then I understand that it doesn't. So there is this like weird situation in which like I talk to it, but it's not, and I find it fascinating.
Thank you. Should I just go in order? Yeah, I think I'm more or less in the same boat. I'm uncertain, and my perception of AI is still changing, I have to say, as I explore and learn more. So my answer might be different a year from now or 2 years from now. For me right now, it's hard for me to see AI as a collaborator, because I'm not sure who I am collaborating with. Is it like the engineers that are writing the algorithms, the learning algorithms, or the people, probably including myself and all of us here, whose data got used in the training process, right, without us knowing most of the time. And there are also workers behind these systems doing invisible work to like continue to label and moderate AI output to make it more acceptable. For me, it could be seen as a tool, or potentially it could be seen as a medium through which you could maybe create different representations of the human experience. That is when the current ethical concerns have been addressed, and maybe it's more like in Sutanuka's work, right? When AI systems are becoming more ethical, and we can create our own models to preserve memory, to preserve knowledge. Maybe until that time, I'm not sure whether I could really collaborate with it. For me right now, it's more of a subject of critique and examination, and I try to approach it in both critical and explorative ways. So in the critical approach, I'm working to educate and working to demystify AI through education by researching and revealing its inner workings, how it's made, how different AI tools have been made, what kind of labor went into its development, and how it's being used. But there is also an experimental, explorative side of my work where I see AI as a mirror that reflects and sometimes distorts the human experience, because it's a representation of some kind of collective intelligence. And because of its ability to mimic humans, we could potentially use it to learn more about ourselves and our relationships with others and the society at large.
That's an interesting answer, because I was also thinking, do I really see AI as a collaborator? I think it's more like I see AI as a provocator. Just like, let's say I'm a student, AI is like a advisor, a mentor for me, where it enhances my thought process without restricting me to my own thoughts. It kind of pushes me to think beyond my own perception of knowledge, or inspires me with its glitches, with its mistakes, to think about a project or think about a thing beyond my limitations, and it kind of expands my limitation in the same process, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll pass it on to our student question leaders. I think it's Lucy, yeah.
Thank you for all the impressive presentations. Hi, I'm Lucy, and I'm a student. I'm a sophomore in Parsons School of Design, and I'm studying design and technology right now. So I have a question for Alina. Alina, in your piece, Bug in My Software, you are bridging nature and technology. So how do you foresee the future relationship of nature and technology unfolding? And what role do creatives and designers have to play in this future?
Thank you, Lucy. This is a really good question. I guess I'm not sure if I can foresee necessarily how nature and technology will kind of develop further in some kind of relationship. But I guess I would say rather what's the preferable future of this relationship for me, right? Rather than forecasting something, because right now all indicators not necessarily show anything necessarily very hopeful. But I'm very intrigued by this idea of soft technologies. And I think in many ways, like the idea of other ways of being or cosmotechnics kind of resonates with that in many ways. So the idea of soft technologies, to think about something that is not necessarily designed for like a profit or in the framework of linear progress, but thinking about with the like a sort of larger planetary ideas of where technologies lie and how they are integrated into the life cycles, environmental, ecological life cycles. So thinking about technology as something not separate from ecological systems, but something integrated in them, and kind of having and looking at it more holistically from that perspective, it could enable an alternative vision of how the technology should be constructed, starting from the ideas of sustainability and thinking about technologies as something that can be fully integrated to the environment without having tremendous challenges posed by e-waste that are also going only to increase with the further proliferation of AI systems. But also like thinking about soft technologies, like, I mean, I'm really intrigued by, the recent development in organoid computers that also obviously kind of have all kinds of ethical implications to them. But thinking about technologies not as the kind of hard in like large scale, heavy infrastructures full of, conflict minerals, but also thinking about other types of technologies, not necessarily digital technologies, but thinking about textile as a technology, fabric weaving, as a ancient way to preserve knowledge and tell stories and encode data. In many ways, fabric production, starting from knitting or again crocheting or weaving, is a form of programming in some ways, because you are kind of executing an algorithm as you are making the piece of cloth. And so all kinds of data, information, and interaction can be done with those types of tools. And I think it would be really wonderful to expand our notion of what technology means. Because I think also conventionally right now, then somebody says technology, we all think, oh, high tech. That means it's a digital tech. That means it's data centers. That means it's AI, computers, blah, 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 GPUs. But language is technology too, right? Textile is technology. We are surrounded by all kinds of systems of knowledge and technological ideas that could be also kind of brought back at the forefront of thinking about what technology is. And those are also more ecological, more potentially environmental, and can be better integrated into the ecosystem.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vanessa, and it's such an honor to see these all amazing workshops. And I have a question for Carrie. Like in your project, Who's AI, the workshop participants aged 14 to 20 wrote conversation with AI that revealed their personal feelings, thought, and critiques for the technology. So I'm curious, like given your findings, how do you think this generation's perspective on AI differ from previous generation? Like, did you glean any other generational insight related to AI ethics from the interactive workshops?
Thank you, Vanessa. Yeah, as a person from a previous generation, I'm not sure how different the participants of my workshop are from other generations, but I do remember being a little surprised about how critical these students were towards AI technology, because I assumed that they were born into the age of social media, and it might be easier for them to just embrace whatever new technology comes out. However, in the meantime, so they were really critical towards AI technologies, but in the meantime, they also seem to think that there was nothing that they could do to change how technology would be developed or used. Most of the students were kind of in the mindset of it is what it is. I don't like it, but we'll just have to deal with it. We'll just have to adapt to it. And honestly, I sometimes feel that way as well. But this is what I seek to change with the workshops or with my work in general. I want us to know that we do have some agency in this and we do have a choice. We may not change the way big companies develop AI overnight, but there are small things that we can do and things that we can advocate for. Say we can choose to advocate for a more equitable, transparent, sustainable process of AI development. We can also choose to use AI in ways that are outside of the cycle of profit, efficiency, convenience, right? All of those productivity-driven framework. We can repurpose it to counterbalance predominant narratives, like the other artists today, like what their work has been doing. We can even use AI to resist hierarchical systems. So I want to, through the workshops, equip the students with the skill sets to better engage in critical dialogues, and also to feel more confident in their exploration about how they could change the narratives around AI and around technology in general.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Khan. I'm a student at Parsons School of Design studying fashion design. My next question is for Sutamuka, since I am also like very interested in architectural design. It's very interesting to see your work. In your work, you toe the line between boundaries, be it boundaries between species, consciousness, language, and materiality. Could you speak to how you use technology as a medium to explore and push against boundaries? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. I think for me, there is not one single category of how we are putting each of this topic together, but it's more like a threshold. And there are different boundaries for different elements of experiments that we do. So in a way, but also creating a boundary between works is also very important, because or else what you are thinking of a certain topic you can easily get overwhelmed with something else that you see at this point, let's say because of the internet, because of technology nowadays. So it's very important to set this pre-subscribed rule for yourself and for the topic of work that you want to work on, in that sense, and kind of sit in between those boundaries through these data sets, let's say, through this research, and ask yourself what you want to achieve, and then train this technology to achieve better than what you thought it was within the same subject of your study, let's say. So it's also, the boundaries are not just blurred, but it's also affecting each other at the same time, because you grow as they grow together in the same perspective. Yeah.
I have another question for Alina. In your immersive work across XR textiles and simulation, how do you navigate the balance between your artistic version and the generative possibilities of AI? And do you typically begin with narrative or concept and find the right tool? Or do the capabilities of an AI tool sometimes spark entirely new creative directions?
Thank you. Really good question. So I think that, I mean, I would say that my work is more conceptually driven, and I think that I do definitely first sort of start with the question, or sort of some kind of very fuzzy vision of a concept. Or for this project, Bug in My Software, I was really obsessed with silk moths and silkworms. I started just learning about them and understanding the amount of patents for different tools to optimize their life cycle is just unimaginable. So kind of thinking about this species kind of led me on this kind of bender of discovering and figuring out what would be the best tools to use to kind of create this project that kind of symbolically lets them loose. So I don't think, I mean, for me, it's more interesting to use AI to explore what it can do. So like, it's always me who starts the process. I don't think there was a case that in my practice yet that AI would trigger a creative output of AI would trigger something in the project. So like I am interested in poking holes in AI and trying to figure out where it's going to fall apart, where it's not going to do what it intends to do, or when it does something bizarre that is not supposed to be done, right? So I like to see those distortions and use them as like aesthetic mode of aesthetic inquiry, rather than thinking about AI as sort of the generator of ideas. Because for me, I think it's the other way around. So yeah, so I guess, but also like it also comes from me. Like I would imagine that there are ways to start with AI as like a starting point in the process. But like in my practice, and this is what I'm kind of doing typically, it's always coming with the initial concept, and then I'm choosing the right tool for the project. But that's why like I have so many. I feel like every single project I start, I have to pick up a skill, which is great because I really like learning, but it's also very time consuming. But yeah, concept first.
Hey, I'm Vanessa, and I have another question for Carrie. Also, your project, Who's AI, I can see it challenged the notion that AI is a neutral or independent entity by actively evolving underrepresented youth in co-creating knowledge around it. Like in light of idea that equitable AI requires equitable people, how do you see your workshop as reshaping not just how young people understand AI, but how they might reimage the future ownership, authorship, or purpose?
Thank you. Yeah, the most important, like I said earlier, the most important goal of the workshops is to empower the participants to keep exploring and learning, and eventually, hopefully, contributing to a more equitable future of technology. I see this workshop as a really early, like, first step in the process. And I was not telling them how they should reimagine the future. I was providing framework and structures for them to engage with these tools in open, transparent, and decentralized ways, so that they could, first of all, learn more about AI, and also learn from this experience of working together in a decentralized manner to explore a very complex topic. Regarding the future, I think the last workshop in the series of 4 workshops asks the students to work together to write down a collective ethical AI manifesto. And that is where they can reflect on what they have learned in previous workshops, in previous activities, and really think about the future and what an equitable AI system means for them.
Thank you.
Hi, Sitanuka. I have another question for you. In Media Sculpt, you explore how linguistic diversity and migration patterns influence the physical and emotional landscapes of cities using tools like GIS, machine learning, and speculative architecture. How do you see speculative design helping us critically engage with the ways AI might reshape our urban environments, particularly in how cities remember and respond to the language spoken within them?
Interesting. Actually, in Media Sculpt, while I'm saying I'm mapping language, it's not, in terms of Indian culture, it's not just mapping language, it's also kind of mapping memories. So that is when speculative design plays a major role, because as we were studying around the migration of Indian languages over time, over 30 years of time, we also see when a person migrates from one city to another, they always leave behind some residue, some kind of memory that we should speculate or bring forward in order not to lose the um, homogenization of technology, or not to lose the language in a way. So it's kind of speculation also kind of addresses the background of this research of how we use language or memory in a way to bring forward an important concept of how we can preserve language, or how people were in a certain place at a certain time when this community was there, and what changes happened over time when another community, let's say, came together in the same place. So speculation kind of gives you that bridge between past, present, and future to have a complete synergy, to really visualize. That's the beauty of technology, I think, these days, to show things in a speculative way, which becomes interesting, but is also very deeply rooted in research. Yeah.
Thank you
so
all
much.
for these
Thank you.
wonderful questions. And I really appreciate the depth of each of your questions. It has been very excited to witness like 3 different ways each of you approach AI creativity and ethics and co-authorship and speculation. Because we're about time, so just to close, I'd like to ask one final question, and I hope that it can create like, it's not like the end of this ongoing, not the end of this dialogue, but like open up for an ongoing conversation. So what is one step, however small, that artists and designers can take today to ensure that the future of creative AI remains ethical, equitable, and generative?
Okay, maybe I can start. For example, for me, I think at this point, as artists, like I said, it's our responsibility to understand, for example, what data sets are we using, and what kind of ethical values do we need for each of our project, let's say. So when we are studying these elements, what is missing? And what is the important questions that we are addressing through these ethical implications? So I think the moment we start to base our projects on rules, I think that is the best time when we can help preserve our own sense of self. Or else, for sure, technology is getting more and more powerful, and it's important to always remember where your foot is on the ground. So yeah.
So we go in reverse order.
Yeah.
I
Sure.
think, yeah, mine is actually kind of similar to Susan Lucas, but I have another one. Okay, the first one is similar, is keep learning about the technologies we are using, not just how to use them, but how they were made. Like what you said earlier, what kind of data sets were used in the process. This helps us make informed decisions in our work. And another step that I always tell my students is, no matter how you're using AI in your work, in your description of the project, or when you're talking about the work, we should be open and transparent about how AI has been used in our work. This is the least we can do as creatives. And this will help other creatives understand our relationship with AI, with technological systems as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the point that they're made by Tanuka and Carrie. From my end, I would add, however, I think that limiting the use of AI generally, especially if the tools that you use are the commercial AI available right now, such as ChatGPT or Midjourney. If you don't have to use it, don't use it. Rely on the basic Googling of information. If that's what you're using ChatGPT for, try to. Or like same thing with Midjourney, they try to find a stock image, or like just like online, like just try to search for this thing yourself rather than relying on those tools, especially when you're starting, especially in your like very early steps of your creative journey, because every human brain and intelligence is so much more complex and unique than the initial generalized responses that those tools may provide to you. It's better to, write your own thing, however clumsy it may be, perhaps my writing is not the best, but it definitely would be way more unique and more reflective of what you are doing rather than a generalized response that is reliant on a very specific data set and very specific, situatedness of the developers who built that AI. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Also, I would like to open the floor to the audience. If you have any questions for our panelists, please type it in the chat. And if not, I feel like we can maybe play more around like Carrie's unproductive AI prototype, because that was like something that's so interesting to engage with. What do you think, Julian?
We might be, are we close to time? Shofan. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
we might be. If we do have a moment to play around with the bot, that could be fun. But I also understand that we want to be respectful of everyone's time here. So maybe place your questions in the chat, and we can always collect them after, and maybe we can do something with them.
Yeah.
But perhaps we wrap up here. What do you think?
Sounds good.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's just wonderful to hear from you all. It's an honor to be listening and learning from you three, Gary, Alina, Sutanuka. My heartfelt thanks and gratitude. I think the conversation for me really illuminated not just where AI and emerging technologies are intersecting with art and design, but how they're intersecting with just humanity and reshaping how we work, imagine, and move through these emerging futures. And I hope that everyone who's joined has gleaned something to bring forward in their practice, creative practice or otherwise. And I look forward to the continued conversations with you all. I think we can send out a recap email, Xiaofan, with maybe social links. But any
Yeah,
other
for
words
sure.
from you and UAAD?
Since this is a recorded session, I would like to ask for everyone's consent to share this recording on our YouTube channel, if that's fine with y'all. Oh, good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a great rest of your day, rest of your week.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch. Thanks.
Thank you, Julian
Thank
and
you.
Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.